I just want to begin with humility. To be self-emptied and spirit-filled. Got to tell you, the personality of me has felt a little bit of pressure about this conversation today. 250, huge, really extraordinary. And yet at the same time, I'm not a history student, but I am a metaphysician. And I'm trained and I'm taught to discern and to see divine ideals everywhere. And every year, when we get to this date, I am so grateful to study something called the Declaration of Independence. But this year, expanding the studies. I was going to watch all 9 episodes of the PBS, The Revolution, and I found it at times a little sedating. And so I had a little trouble getting through it all, but I took notes, which helped keep me going. And I feel as if, I don't know if it's age, I don't know what exactly it is. I have a feeling it's the context of where I find myself as being an American, as being a minister, as being a human, having a human experience, but being a divine person at this point, at this juncture in our evolution, in our history, and what's going on in the world, that I have such a love and such a tenderness for our country that I've never felt exactly in this way before, because it's precious. Because something is precious, and that there was a promise that was made that is not complete. And that calls me to want to have the desire to have a greater understanding of what it is, like where we fall short, so that we may have a more complete union with spirit, with God, and in our country, and with one another. And that in addition to being a metaphysician, meaning that I metaphysically interpret all of life to see beyond the appearances, to remember that appearances and conditions are effect of something else, and that we are each causal agents for change in our experience of life. And inherent in this document is that. That is the freedom that is spoken of, that we have the authority and the freedom and the liberty to course our life, to be the determiner of our life. And that when we abdicate that, something happens. And we can think of this in purely metaphysical terms. When I do that, the contemplative mystic takes me back to a time and an era in which I may have been, but I think of coming to a new world, being people who came and crossed a great ocean to come to a new world as messengers from the old world, in a way, to stake a claim in a vast continent that was representative, supposedly, of an island nation across that ocean. And that I adventure, and that we all adventured out into this new world, but not having new ideas. And when we don't have new ideas, we become servants to something old, something that doesn't work any longer. Biblically speaking, it's like having a new consciousness, a new wine, and putting it into an old skin. That we must have a new consciousness to match the experience that the vision is calling forward. And so on this day, yesterday, what we celebrated on July 4th was actually the agreement of the 13 colonies to agree to the document that's called the Declaration of Independence. Now, it wasn't signed yet, but it took that period of time to come to agreement on the language. Now, for me, metaphysically, when I think of the 13 colonies, I'm thinking of 13 states of consciousness. Each one represents a different state, a different perspective, a different idea. They all came from different places and kind of co-populated in different areas and had their own culture. And frankly, as I understand it, argued with one another. That there was never really a complete and total agreement on the day-to-day activities of life, but something united them. And it was a vision and an idea that was unprecedented. And it was that vision and idea that united them. So when I think of myself, when I think of this as my own self-discovery, how often have I harbored within my body-mind thought systems that would represent different states of consciousness, that argue with one another, that may not get along, that may not have a commonality? How often have I felt confused about topics, and on the one hand I can think this, on the other hand I think that, and that there could be many different thought systems within our thinking mind. And that's how I view this, that this separation, that this idea of all of these different states of consciousness, what could bring them together? And I know in my own pathway, the only thing that ever brings me into alignment is a God consciousness. Now, what I know and what we hear is that a house divided falls. That a house divided falls, but that when we can agree within ourselves on a pathway and a course of the trajectory of our life and that which we dedicate our lives to, when we are willing to do that, it's a game changer. Everything changes. And this particular declaration becomes like a line of demarcation that once it is crossed, you can't go back. And the reason for that is because to defy the order, the kingdom of Great Britain, to defy it was treason. And so to agree to this declaration meant everybody was all in. We're all in. It's kind of like burning the boats. We're all in. And once we're all in and once we come together, odds are defied. There was no way that this budding nation could have stood up against this great empire. The odds were stacked against it completely. There was, if we had... if my dad's bookie would call, the odds would have been not good, right? They would have been, yeah. So the idea that we stand here today coming from this is in of itself quite extraordinary. And so that's the foundation of the metaphysical piece. So July 4th represents that 250th anniversary, indeed. And it was a day when they agreed, but they agreed upon language, they agreed upon words. And in our teaching, the power of our words become really important to us. In fact, it is the words from the throat chakra that we speak that become the power in our lives. And so the power of the words of the declaration, and a declaration being a formal, explicit statement, was something that was new and unprecedented. And it represented that change, of course, a line of demarcation. And so the question I have for you as you consider this in your own lives is, do you believe that your words and that your declarations and the language that you use have power in your life? Less power when there are 13 different views, more powerful when it aligns in one purpose, one function, and that's when that power is aligned. So I invite each of us to consider what these ideas are and how they might be relevant in your life today. And how, so if we're being metaphysicians, it's not just about the country, it's about your personal life, your relationships, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with work, your relationship with your loved ones. It's about how it plays out and how our soul is revealed by these divine ideas and how we apply them in our lives that makes the difference. So the idea of, and I just want to begin by speaking some of the words. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States. And so for me, that idea of unanimous declaration is that one mind. How do we in our lives keep our mind focused, our eye single, and stayed on God consciousness? Where are my states of consciousness scattered, opposing? Where are they arguing and fighting? And where can I offer it all upon the altar to be unified, healed, the polarities healed, to be of one mind, and the power of that? It says, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. When in the course of human events, the day-to-day activities of your life, have you forgotten that which you are committed to? I know, sometimes for me, it's like right after I'm done with my meditation, I've done my intentions, I go out the door, and I've already forgotten about it. Has that ever happened to you? And so this becomes a practice of continuously recalibrating. When in the course of human drama and events have I lost my focus? And when I do, it means I've hooked into something outside of myself. Esther last week used the word hoodwinked. I've gotten hoodwinked into a thought system that is not for me, but that rather works against me. But I've become mesmerized by it. It's become a habit, so I continue to let myself be hoodwinked. When I can step back and unhook from that thought process, and that what is required is a complete disillusion, a complete saying, get thee behind me, a complete denial of a thought system of separation, a thought system of the ego. And so no longer, how do you know when you're not congruent with something? You feel it. Do you ever feel uncomfortable, on edge, angry, reactionary? Okay? Those are the moments when you're like, what have I been hoodwinked by? What thought system am I believing that's foreign, that no longer has my best interest at heart? And am I willing to say to that thought system and deny it, get thee behind me? Get thee behind me. Stinking thinking. Get thee behind me. So when am I willing to do that? When am I willing to break an alliance with a mindset that is negative, opposite of affirmative, that tells me I'm not enough, that convinces me that there's lack? You can't have a little bit of a thought system about that and a little bit about I'm prosperous, whole, and complete at the same time. We think we hold them both at the same time, but we don't. We're either in the mindset of the ego, of fear, or in the mindset of love. And that's it. It's a binary proposition. So we make room for a new mindset, a new belief system. It goes on to say, and to assume among powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitles them. So we're disengaging from a fake power, a fear puffing itself up as being real, as being the power in our lives. And we're saying that there's another power, God's power. nature's power, love's power. I'm going to align with that. What this document did was it rejected the divine right of kings. It rejected the divine right of false sense of order that went from God to king to people. I would say from God to idol to people. And where are we seeing the reemergence of the idea of kings in our political system? Where are we seeing that the governance of the people are playing secondary to a false idol? And where do we see that in our lives? Where do we think it's our bank account that's going to save us, be there on that rainy day? When do we believe that something outside of ourselves is our source, our substance, our supply? The minute we do that, we've separated ourselves from God, from source, and we believe in lack in that very moment. So a revolution means to turn. It means to realign. So the beauty of this is every chance we get, we bring this into our awareness, we can realign. We can rededicate ourselves to our spiritual truths. And it says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, we know that our founders were imperfect. We know that. We know that there was an ideal that was set forth for equality. But the equality of the day didn't mean everybody, and we know that. And this is where our work continues. Where are we withholding complete equality among all people, among all beings, among sentient beings, among life itself? This is what we're called to do, to make this more congruent with the divine idea that popped in, that all of us possess inherent rights, and that politics ought to be embedded in divine principle, in natural laws endowed by our Creator. And these rights, man, I got to tell you, they're things you can't shake off. You can't shake it off. That's what that means. It's a part of who we are. We can deny it for some, but it doesn't make it true. We can deny ourselves of our rights to life, liberty, to the pursuit of happiness. We can limit ourselves, but that's not the way God created us. You can't mess with it. You can fall asleep and dream that you can mess with it, and nobody else can take it away from you, actually, either, without our consent. And so that was another piece that is inherent in here that I think is a divine idea, is that the government governs by our consent. And that is true of us. We become 100% responsible for our own thoughts, our own decisions, and how we create our lives. We stop blaming the world or the politicians or life for happening to us, and we return to that divine order of God, mind first, the divine mind, the idea, and then the experience. And so these are some of the ideas that I just think are so rich, that we're the determiner of our own life, and that we're the ones who declare a freedom from tyranny. or from somebody usurping a power that is not theirs. That is not theirs. And so, to secure these rights, governments are instituted by us, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, this one I think is really interesting. Sometimes we have structures in place to support us. And when the structure comes into place, we have a high ideal for it. But over time, we begin to pledge our allegiance to the structure rather than to the divine idea. And if the structure isn't working for us, we get to change it. This is our right in our lives. So if the way I have my life set up isn't working for me, I can change it. I don't have to believe that the structures of work or jobs or the way that I'm living or where I'm living is put upon me. I'm the chooser of everything in my life. And so are you. So are we. And so these are just some of the ideas. Where do we give our consent? Where have we given away our power to give our consent? Where are we not acting responsible, 100% responsible for our own experience? Am I a hostage to a structure? Or am I a host to spirit? Anytime I place an idol before God consciousness, I become a hostage to it. And it runs me. The founders also put a moral duty embedded in the Declaration that it was the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new governments when the current structure isn't working. So it's saying that we have a moral duty to actually deny that which isn't working in our lives and to affirm truth. That we deny illusion and false orders and false idols, and we align with natural laws. And then my favorite part, one of my favorite parts, is all experience has shown us that mankind is more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the form to which they are accustomed to. How long have you continued to suffer in a system you kind of created yourself? How long? And you do it, you don't like it, so you might gripe about it, but you don't do anything to really change it. I know I have lived decades like that. Probably lifetimes like that. And the beauty of this moment, every moment where we pause and breathe, we take a breath, suffering is not baked into our system. It's not baked into the natural laws that we speak of. That we are not required to suffer in order to enter the kingdom and queendom of heaven consciousness. We can change our mind at any time, and therein lies our power. And so, how many times do we give ourselves a medal for how long we can handle it? How long we can suffer in the heat. I did that yesterday. Look at me. I can be out here all day long. I'm like sweating and a little bit miserable, but I can do it. How often do you do that with something that you're not satisfied with in your life? But it's just, you become accustomed to it just enough that you're just not uncomfortable enough yet. Are you uncomfortable enough yet? Yeah? Are you ready for a shift? Are you ready for a change? Yes. So then we walk in that yes. We walk in that yes. We let that yes empower us. And so what the document continues to do is it is declaring to the world these principles, these divine ideas. They're not doing it for themselves. They're not really doing it for Great Britain. They're doing it for the world because they're claiming their independence to stand among the world. Are you willing to stand as a divine emanation of spirit in the world, shoulder to shoulder with our brothers and sisters, shoulder to shoulder with the one that we call Jesus? No idols. Are we willing to cultivate what Jesus did, opening the heart and looking to God consciousness for everything, aligning and declaring from their love? And that love is what pulls us forward and binds us to one another. Are we willing to say once and for all, I will tolerate no more error in myself? We have a group of people following the way of mastery right now, and that's what we're saying. And we didn't like that so much. The affirmation or I will no longer tolerate error in myself. Please say that with me. I will no longer tolerate error in myself. Well, that sounds kind of unloving, doesn't it? Some of that stuff in the Declaration of Independence didn't sound so loving, but it was saying what was so. And sometimes we need a reckoning to say what is so. If there is error in myself, nobody else put it there but me. Nobody else chose it but me. And so I will no longer tolerate error in myself. Now, it doesn't mean that error won't occur, but it does mean that I just missed the mark for a moment and that I can realign and try again. When you make a declaration that is bold, that is public, it encourages you to stick to it. So I encourage us this week to think of what our declaration of independence is. What are we declaring we're independent from, we're free from? What thought system are we no longer engaging? And we stand in our independence as a sovereign being of the divine itself. And likewise, what am I declaring my dependence upon? I declare my dependence on God consciousness. I declare my dependence on love. I declare my dependence upon God as the source, substance, and supply and solution for everything in my life. That's my declaration of dependence. Independent from the ego mind, from the states of consciousness that argue and fight with each other. Aligned in God consciousness. And so what declarations of dependence and independence are you willing to make this week? And how are you willing to share it with another? Are you willing to speak it to another? Hey, babe. Hey, babe. Here's what I'm up to in life. Here's what I'm committed to. And here's what I'm no longer going to tolerate in my life. Will you be a companion in my life that will help me stay true to what I have declared? There's power in this. We do it every Sunday with our vision, our mission, and our affirmations. We do it every Sunday. Don't think you can stand up and make those kind of declarations without it having an impact. You're already all in. You're already in that vision. You're already transforming lives that transform the world. This is the power that we speak of. I return to where I began, which is with humility. I humbly know that this one named René just scratched the surface. Could have done a better job with this big, big topic. I know that. But here's the deal. It's not too late for any of you to metaphysically sit with this document for yourself. Because that's the whole point of metaphysical interpretation. This person up here can tell you stuff, but it doesn't make it true for you. We walk this path ourselves, and in that is our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. We become the consenters, the decision makers of the mindset that we are aligned with, and as such become the causal agents for change in our lives and in the world. This is what I know. This is what I invite us all to partake of at this juncture in our world and in our lives. And I see glory and wonderful and beautiful things happening. Look around. Say, it's you. It's you. It's you. It's us. And so it is. Amen. Amen. Amen.